Oh, hello. Wasn't really sure how to open that episode, but I'm guessing what I just said wasn't it. But in this episode, we're building the Phantom roller coaster. I feel like I should have introduced this episode a bit more to begin with. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. In case the thumbnail and title of the video and what you've seen thus far was not enough to inform you what the video is, now you know with 100% certainty what we're doing today. And what are we doing today? Well, we're building a roller coaster. And this is another great argument as to why I should think about scripting these, or at least having some sort of bullet points or, notepad. But I feel like part of the charm of this series is its overall awfulness. and actually that was the end of that thought process. So I'm just going to talk about something else. This is a really cool roller coaster, actually. I wasn't a big fan of, this type of roller coaster. Obviously, all my roller coasters are pretty cool. But this type of roller coaster is particularly interesting because it doesn't actually exist in the real world yet. I mean, the actual concept. Well, I mean, just backpedaling, there are single rail roller coasters in the world to an extent. Like, you can get the little alpine ones, the ones that are just powered by gravity, and you just sit in like a little carriage that you just push off yourself and then you just climb in. It's very slow pace. Certainly nowhere near to the scale of a roller coaster like this. The concept itself is by RMC, just a single rail roller coaster. They've got concept parts and, it would theoretically work. But as of yet, unless it's like some secret project or anything being built, there isn't one that exists. I mean, I think... is it the There's one called it was in the 1960s. It was called the Meteor roller coaster or something. That was single rail, but it was a different kind of single rail to what you're seeing in this video here. So yeah, I wasn't really the biggest fan of this type of ride when I first saw it, because it just kind of looks a bit unrealistic in the sense that it doesn't look like a real roller coaster basically. So I wasn't really a big fan of it. So this is the first time I've ever used it. But then I started thinking it'd be kind of cool if I were a real roller coaster owner. Now, after I heard that this was actually a real concept and wasn't just a weird thing made specifically for the game, that yeah, it'd be kind of a cool selling point to try and get more tickets sold and more people interested in the park if we had kind of a very unique track design like this and a world's first, method of building the track, so to speak. So it's kind of warmed up to me now. But yeah, so it's a fairly... straightforward sort of out there. What is it called? Just there and back again type roller coaster, where it just goes out, then comes back and does a few sort of loops and twists in between. So it's fairly standard affair, but I actually really like this ride and the way it turned out. We'll do some landscaping later on because I wanted to make one that kind of hugs the terrain, like a roller coaster that hugs the terrain, and I thought it'd be easier just to build the track first and then go and retrospectively add the terraforming and stuff. But just doing a few tests there. Everything seems to work quite well. We've got some good stats as well, all in the green, which is great. And a 7.42. Did it say 7.42? Excitement stat isn't too bad. So you can just go ahead and add some catwalks, just different segments, just to add a little extra layer of I guess realism, although not having catwalks doesn't denote unrealism. But yeah, we can just do a quick. I don't know if let me know if you don't like seeing these sort of fast motion POVs, but this is just, I feel it gives off a better perspective on the smoothness and the overall kind of layout and flow and pacing of the ride if you get to see it all really fast first. And then, as always, at the end of this video, you can watch it at normal speed and get to appreciate it as intended. So yeah, after doing that ride, I noticed a few things that could be smoothed out here and there, little bits that could be improved. In the end, I didn't like the catwalks, so I took them off again. Although I did leave the ones on the lift hill because the lift hills generally always have the catwalks, don't they? But yeah, the first thing we can do is start building the station. I want to dedicate slightly less time to the construction of the station. I felt like, although it wasn't necessarily reflected in all the comments, I feel like watching back on the Artemis episode, I think I spent too much of it working on the station when I could have made that a little bit more abridged. So I'm going to still be showing quite a lot of the construction of the station and queue line buildings in this video, but I'm not going to show, I'm not going to go overboard in how much I show. So we're just going to kind of do these clock wipes every so often after we've built something significant, and I'm sure you can piece together in your mind the bits that you've not seen. So I kind of went for a sort of Mediterranean-y kind of aesthetic. No real reason. I just felt like doing that. Maybe I could have made this because as I've mentioned in previous episodes, all the rides follow the names of my more popular SSTOs, namely the Argus, Phantom, and Artemis. We also have Revenge in there as well, which was Revenge was really the godfather of my spaceplane career, even though the Revenge spacecraft weren't single stage, they were 2-stage. But that's besides the point. In the Spaceplane Innovations lore is my fake company name in Kerbal Space Program. God, I'm such an egomaniac. But no, going to talk about this video, I was actually quite happy with the way this turned out. I think it ended up looking quite nice. Fairly simple, not too complex and overboard, but I feel like even so, I think it looks pretty nice. I couldn't quite get the pieces lined up there, so I ended up just duplicating the bit from the other end, and then we can just continue working on the rest of the building. So I like to build the path, try and hug this wall here, and then we'll build the building around the path. So I was trying to get it to the right proportion so it wouldn't we wouldn't get too much of it lopped off, so I just made it twice the width and just had some of it disappear into the wall. And I guess there's not much more to talk about there, really, other than just let the footage speak for itself. There's the monorail station that you saw built in the previous episode. Monorail still isn't open. The plan was to have the monorail track connect all the different corners of the park. In the end, though, I just felt the park was too small to really justify the existence of the monorail. And there just aren't, where the stations are, there are no paths or anything. Like, there wasn't really much point to it. So in the end, I downscaled it quite a bit. That's why in the building the station video, I never actually showed the construction of the track, because so much of it ended up going anyway. So I think in the end the monorail got demoted to kind of a ride that in the end nobody really rides on, but I think the station building looks nice anyway, so it has that going for it. But yeah, kind of getting back onto the topic of the Phantom roller coaster queue, I kind of got a bit distracted there. Continue with the Mediterranean theme here, so I've kind of gone with a few things, taken my standard approach, and I'm sure the standard approach of many, where we just build one section of wall. And then once we're happy with that section, we'll just copy the whole thing. I like to drag it away and get rid of all the fat, trim off all the fat, and then just copy that around until we have the full structure more or less mapped out. Obviously, we'll have to do some changes here and there, so we don't have the pathway cut off for one thing, and also to just sort out the corner parts as well. But I think you can get the general gist of what's going on here. So we'll probably just skip ahead a little bit just to... There we go. Just showing the front of the queue, so I know ditching those arches in favour of these square things. The things that are designed, they're meant to go around the roller coaster track at the entrance and exit to the roller coaster stations, but they also make quite nice supporting structures. And we'll just do some sort of flourishes here and there with the lights. We can sort them out in the interior at a later point, and then just closing off all the walls we want closed off. Fairly standard finishing stuff, really. And of course, we'll have the sign, try and keep it kind of old schooly in keeping with the rest of the station design, and then we can get onto that terraforming I mentioned earlier. So just kind of raising and lowering the ground around the parts. I try not to go too overboard with tunnels and things, though, because I kind of wanted this to be kind of above ground, but, the parts that were near the ground were very, very near the ground, if that makes any sense at all. And we do have some sort of channels being carved away into the rock there. But I was being careful not to go too overboard. Perhaps in retrospect, I probably went a little bit too overboard with the terraforming of the Artemis, in that it goes through the rock like it has an actual physical tunnel going through the rock face. I don't know, maybe I didn't. I feel like this is a lot closer to what might actually exist in the real world, as opposed to what the Artemis's terraforming is, even though maybe it isn't. I don't know. Same thing for Emporium Raceway, really. I don't know if I really in hindsight, really like the way it kind of shoots through a big piece of rock in through a hill. I don't know, maybe this is just maybe this is a very weird nitpick to have, but yeah, anyway, we can just, now we've done the actual basic terrain, we can carry on improving the aesthetic appearance of the whole thing by just adding some little trees here and there, just to, make it a bit more interesting. And we can add some rocks later as well, just to make the whole thing a bit more natural and a bit more sort of aesthetically pleasing, I suppose, because it's a little bit plain looking around the park at the moment, and there's a lot of big empty open spaces. By the time, rest assured, by the time this series has reached its conclusion and everything is finished, I'll do a big overview video, obviously, so you don't have to sit through every video to kind of appreciate all the fine details of individual rides. I'll do a nice overview of them all. I hope it'll be nice. Anyway, I haven't actually made that yet, but yeah, and also just to show we will be filling out all the big open spaces that are in this park at the moment. But I'm leaving them empty for now because it gives me more room to, facilitate construction of more rides and pathways and things like that. But yeah, rest assured they will be cleared and everything when this park's finished. Anyway, knocking the microphone there. I'm going to shut up now and let you just enjoy the time lapse of this roller coaster. So sit back and enjoy. And there we are, slowing ourselves back down and returning into the station. So, I suppose that's pretty much a wrap for the construction of that roller coaster, although there's one more thing I'd like to cover in this video before we consider, wrapping the whole thing up completely. But before we get on to that, we'll just do there's a little overview of what we've built so far. So this park is really coming together, everything's really shaping up. So I think we're getting there. So the one thing I want to fix is this sort of middle part here. You see where Avenger, that big white building is, where the Emporium is and where the Argus entrance is. That whole area kind of looks a bit weird, so I decided to tidy it up a bit. So we deleted that flat ride. That's why I never showed the construction of that, because I knew its fate was doomed from the beginning. I don't think I ever even bothered opening it, but yeah, I wanted to kind of make a proper sort of junction area here. And what better centerpiece for a junction than a nice fountain? I can actually delete those areas money. So I decided to make a nice little fountain. The way I did this was just sort of stacking obviously there's the fountain parts, but also just sort of arranging statues and things. There's not that many statue items in Planet Coaster, but there's a lot of sort of pirate and ocean themed statues, which I guess does fit very nicely with a fountain, because a fountain is a water feature. So I kind of went with this sort of pirate mermaid themed one, although there are no mermaids at the moment. Spoiler alert, there are going to be mermaids at some point. But it can be a little bit of a chore to get things nice and aligned, but I think the results, it really pays off with the results. So yes, just copying everyone around there. So I was being very careful to try and get symmetry across all of them, trying to make them all at the same angle. And then we've got these water spurt features that I sort of placed inside their mouths, so they're kind of blowing water at you, I suppose. Just constantly spitting. So they are. It was quite a sort of long-winded process to get it all, more or less symmetrical in all the mermaids. So I kind of skipped through. Once I placed one, I skipped ahead and placed all of them. And then we've kind of got these ones that go inside the gaps in between the shells as well, just to add a bit more dramatics to the whole fountain construction. And again, we can just do some rotation and offsetting just to get them at the right angle. And I think we've got a pretty nice start so far. Obviously, right now, there's nothing to catch the falling water, so we need to do something about that. And, there was no sort of pool piece big enough to really, work for this fountain, a fountain of this size. So we're going to create a series, like a sort of big pond using all the small pieces. And I kind of went with one built on multiple layers as well, or multiple levels, I should say. So we kind of got the upper layer there, upper level there. I went to say layer, and then I changed to level, and ended up saying level. Yeah, so we kind of got this sort of petal design. So we have the two lower ones and the two upper ones. And then we can just sort of close off those big gaps with these really nice sort of chalk. Is it chalk? Boulders? Marble boulders. I think it ended up looking quite nice. It kind of works quite nicely with the colour of the fountain pieces. So we can just go ahead and, place them appropriately until we've got a nice wall featured off. So I kind of went with the more flatter ones, just so we didn't end up obstructing or, blocking off or creating like too many islands. in the rock. So I thought these made a nice border, obviously rotating and placing them at slightly different angles to make it seem less copy pasted, or less like it was just one rock model that was pasted over and over. So we can just offset them, place a few inside others, just to make the whole thing look a little bit more, obviously not natural because this is very obviously a man-made structure, but less repetitive, a bit more varied, a bit less boring, stuff like that. I was trying to make sure there was no overhang to the pool, like you couldn't see the underside of the pool at any point. So I was just trying to get these to sort of, I didn't want them to stick out too much, but at the same time I wanted them to make sure they were fully covering the border of the pools, particularly the upper ones where guests could potentially look up and be able to see the underside of the pool if looking up at it at the wrong angle. But yeah, so we can just seal off a few of the gaps, or just add a bit of flavour to the edges using the smaller boulders. But that's about it in terms of the design of the fountain. So we can go ahead and we can do a quick zoom out and do a nice overview, and then we can start building the pathway around it. So I wanted to go with a circular design, although this was easier said than done. Pathing system in Planet Coaster is absolutely atrocious. I think we are all aware of this, so I guess I can skip through my attempts at trying to get it circular. And although you can see it's not perfect, I think for all intents and purposes it's close enough. So now we can just finish off the decorations, because it still does look a little bit bare with just those white rocks. We can add some trees, some shrubbery around the edges, I should say, and then we can do one better by adding a few more different types of foliage. So just make the whole thing look a little bit more varied and a little bit less, going the same thing for why we have varied up the rocks, just to make this thing look a little bit more natural, a little bit less, just cut and pasted. And then we can finish the whole thing off by just adding this white fence around it. Fences in this game can be a little bit painstaking to place, but I think the payoff makes it worth it. And there we have it, a nice little fountain to serve as a centerpiece for kind of the rear loop. So this whole theme park is built on a loop layout, where everything is around the loop. Then we have this sort of central junction here, which branches off to a few different rides. So at the moment, only one of the arms is going to the Argus, but we can make that arm go to a few other places in later episodes. And there's a nice little overview of the Phantom going up its second hill through that 0G roll, and then going through the non-inverting loop, where it flips around at the top. And we've got a little shot of the Argus there as well. And that wraps this episode up. So Twitter, Patreon, Discord, all in the description. The previous episode is the video right now on the left, and the next episode is on the right. And as always, if that episode is not yet out, then the link to the full playlist will be there in its place. And other than that, thank you for watching.